Hello and welcome to the Quincy Access Television studios. I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us for Crime Watch. Today's program features Officer Ryan Donnelly, and the topic is prom and graduation safety. Officer Ryan, Officer Donnelly, welcome.
Either way is fine. Thanks for having me back.
You're so easy, I know. Thank you for coming in, and I think this topic certainly is timely.
Yep.
and very important. Deals with pretty much not so much the prom event or the graduation event, but the parties potentially afterward. And
Yeah, everything
what
that's
happens,
around it.
Right, what happens really afterward. Both of these events are fun events, but they can be stressful, and often stress leads to ways to suppress stress, which could be a problem if you choose incorrectly.
Yeah, I would say they're both momentous days. Graduation's a big deal for everybody, parents, kids, family members, godparents, aunts, uncles, siblings. Prom night's more memorable for the kids going to prom, but I'm sure it can create stress for parents too.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I guess the goal with this program is really just to keep folks safe, to keep kids safe.
Absolutely.
And have parents have that, I suppose, relaxed state of mind when their child isn't in the home.
Yeah, they should enjoy the moment and all the check marks that kids go through and getting to prom and getting to graduation. The parents should live in the moment and enjoy that with them, but sometimes they're consumed by stress.
So let's look at situations where kids, students can get into trouble. I guess what I'm thinking of is underage drinking and drug use.
Yeah, I mean, it's say no to drugs and say no to alcohol until you're legally able to drink it. Don't go over to somebody's house if they're having like a house party or something. The parent should be aware that social host laws are in effect, and if something happens at your home, you could be found culpable and charged criminally and sued civilly. Same with the kids, getting into cars with people who have been drinking. Across the country, kids die in car wrecks from alcohol-related events, like going to a pre-prom party, post-prom party, graduation parties. And we just want everybody to come home safe. I know our department doesn't want to make notifications for people who are seriously injured or passed away from things like that. So we want to make sure everybody has a safe prom and graduation season.
And you and I were talking about driving just moments ago before we started the show. And just a person that's behind the wheel, the response to seeing something, or the response time, seeing something on the road and responding is?
Well, on average, during the daytime, if you're of average health, there's no medications on board, you don't have any pre-existing medical conditions, it's between 1.6 and 1.8 seconds until your brain is able to see what's in front of it and have your body start to manipulate the vehicle to stop it or accelerate or to turn, or whatever the event in front of you or beside you is. So the faster you drive, obviously the more footage you're going to cover in that time frame between 1.6 and 1.8 seconds. There's a bunch of variables that come into effect that will either raise or lower that response time, but on average, that's generally where it is. So if you can do a math project at home and figure out how many feet per second 60 miles an hour is, you'll be astonished. You'll be like, ooh, my car did that much. And then you have to, once you apply the brakes, say there's something in front of you, you need to stop. Obviously there's going to be time and distance for that vehicle to go from 60 to 0 on using the brakes. So I didn't realize how close everybody drives, including myself sometimes, from the car in front of us. So I leave a lot of space, and then of course inevitably someone goes into that space and you got to leave more space, and just make sure you have enough time and area to maneuver around something that happens.
Right, and those times, what you just gave me as far as the response time is unimpaired. So if you
Correct.
are impaired,
Yep.
it's a lot greater.
It's longer. Yeah.
And I guess, I think you and I either spoke about this before or you might have mentioned this at the beginning, but you're in a car, you are not impaired, but you really have to pay attention for what is happening around you. The driver in front of you could be impaired, the driver behind you could be impaired, and you have to be able to respond.
Yeah, so I remember when I was in driving school, when I got my license, I won't tell you people at home when that was. You'll be able to figure it out.
Well, it was before me.
Yeah.
Oh, rather, I was before you.
Yes, you were. Driving school was an option to get money off of your insurance. Now you have to do it to get a driver's license. They told us to scan, predict, identify, decide, and execute. So SIPD is the acronym. So that's what I do every day when I'm driving. Like, I'm always scanning. You look in the rearview mirrors, you look side to side, you look around you, you scan around you. But the big thing is predicting. The longer you drive, the more vehicles you see in motion as an operator. So you can kind of almost see something before it happens. Like, it's like, oh, that car keeps on like coming real close to the lane marker. Like, all right, I'm going to back off a little bit. Next thing you know, they're texting and they go into your lane right where you would have been. But you have that pre-existing knowledge of having seen vehicles operate like that before. So that's the prediction side of it. And then you decide and then you execute to get yourself out of, decide what you're going to do and then execute it and get out of the dangerous condition.
Talk about, you had mentioned texting, and that is very difficult, I think, for younger folks to kind of step away from these days. Talk about the impairment there.
If you're on your phone and you're not looking where you're going to crash into something at some point. If you're in a municipality like Quincy, most likely it's going to be a pedestrian or a car. If you're on the highway, it's going to be a guardrail or another car traveling next to you. And at the speeds that we travel on the highway, if you make contact with a vehicle, you're going to hit the vehicle and then you're going to try to overcorrect and most likely you're going to go off the roadway. Best thing to do is to, all of the cars now that are coming out have these modern conveniences of you can press a button on your steering wheel, which your hands are still on the steering wheel, say, text Mark. Mark, I'll be at the studio in 20 minutes, I'm running a little late. Texting Mark. And then it sends you a text. So we have that luxury now with these newer cars. Granted, kids usually get older cars, hand-me-downs from their parents. Parents aren't buying kids brand new cars nowadays. They're too expensive. But just pull over to the side of the road. Please don't do it at a red light because you're going to not see the light turn green and then you're going to back traffic up and people are trying to get around the traffic and it becomes a whole thing. It's a chain effect. So just stay off the cell phone. If you need to call somebody or text somebody, just pull over. I mean, it takes 2 minutes. You're not backing up traffic. You're not going to get into a wreck.
Let's talk about communications, because communication is critical. As a parent, you should have a discussion with your kid about where they are going after, let's say, the graduation ceremony, who is driving if it's not them. And it should be done in a way that is not confrontational, because I think you could then, your child could then shut you down, and you don't want that because then it's not sinking in. So talk a little bit about that.
So I think every person has, they get to the point, it's like, oh, Mom, leave me alone. Let me live my life. Here's the thing. Mom and dads already have been through life a lot longer than the younger kids have. So, I mean, I see it with my daughter. I reference her on the show all the time. Like, she's like, Dad, you don't get it. I'm like, you're 8. I get it. I've been on this planet 42 years. I've seen a lot of things. But I think with teenagers, I'm not there yet. I will be at some point. But it's harder to kind of just say, listen, I'm doing this to protect you. Like, there's a lot of pitfalls in life that you haven't been able to recognize yet. It takes time and it takes experience to be able to recognize that stuff. So let's not handicap you learning those pitfalls by you getting into a wreck, hurting yourself, hurting someone else, and just make sure everybody's safe. We want to get you past high school. You've been under our wing that long, 18 years. Let's get you to college and then into your life even further. And I think a lot of times parents come from a place of judgment, like, don't make the mistakes that I made, sort of thing. But on the other hand, you got to kind of let your kids realize that they have the power to do the right thing. And I think that's really important. So I think having an open, honest conversation about their safety and what your expectations are for their safety is very, very important.
I think, well, I know, not I think, that having phones readily available nowadays is so much better than in the past, because in the past, a kid would have to look for a payphone potentially, or use a landline.
Yep.
In this case, most, if not all, kids have cell phones at their ready.
Yeah.
Certainly that helps.
Absolutely. I think the main thing with the kids is keep your phone charged, right? Have a plan of where you're going to be. Let an adult know, like either your parents or guardian or aunt or somebody that you trust. Let them know who you're going to be with. Because I'm sure if you're with your boyfriend, girlfriend, or a group of friends going to prom or after graduation, the parents all know each other. I mean, the schools are a small community. Parents all know each other. It's like, oh, Elizabeth is out with Johnny. We haven't heard. Let's call Johnny's mom and see if they're down at this person's house. They'll be back at the house in an hour. And make sure, the main thing is, in case your phone dies or gets broken, make sure that you memorized at least one emergency contact number, if not two. So you can get a hold of somebody on someone else's cell phone or on a house phone, which are rare, but on a house phone.
I guess what can happen as far as the worst case scenario if kids aren't diligent? Accidental deaths, obviously, physical and sexual assaults, and vandalism.
Yeah, so the accidental deaths, you got to be careful. I mean, we all know our brains aren't developed until like age 25 to 27. So
but our kids will tell us different.
Yeah, and younger people take inherent risks that you and I wouldn't take. Again, I think it goes back to that learned experience of life. It's like, I'm not going to jump off this because I broke my foot last time. You learn a lesson from that. You got to make sure that with the unintended, that's going to be either through car accidents, overconsumption of alcohol or drugs. I mean, it's very rare for a young person to pass away from something other than that because they're generally healthy. If you do have a pre-existing health condition that any of those things will affect, just obviously stay away from them. If you have like epilepsy or something, you're not going to be able to drive a car. If you have had adverse reactions to alcohol, don't drink. I mean, you shouldn't be drinking under 21 anyways. And drugs, just stay away from altogether. I mean, things are getting mixed into drugs now, and it's scary. It's a scary time. It's a scary time for even established drug users.
And I have to bring up the legalization of marijuana.
Yep. Yeah, you have to be 21 anyway, so it's just like alcohol. In terms of...
But to say that it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, edibles are out there. They've been out there for a long time. I'm sure everybody knows that guy at school that can get it for you. It's nothing that we don't already know. In terms of assaults and stuff, I think people should just respect everybody else's boundaries. And someone should voice, hey, listen, I'm not comfortable with this situation. I'm going to take myself out of it. If someone is intoxicated or the behavior changes for a different reason and you feel unsafe, leave the situation. The vandalism can be interesting. Don't do it. Most likely it's going to be a felony. Under Chapter 266, 126A, malicious destruction, if you even place a sticker on a telephone pole, that's a felony. Please don't do that. So there's a whole bunch of different vandalism laws, but that's generally the one that we use because it covers pretty much everything. It even says in the law if you temporarily mark or scar an item. So within that framework of the law, I take chalk and write on the side of this building, Mark is terrible at his job, that's a felony. Like, just don't do it.
Which then has implications for later in life, college applications, military
Yep.
career.
So you'll have a criminal record. When you go for jobs, people will be able to see your criminal record based on certain things on there and how good their background checks are. Just like the law enforcement will always be able to see it, even if it is squashed or sequestered or like taken off the books. Like, we still have access to that. The general public will not. But say if you're going to work for a Fortune 500 company and on your Facebook page they see you spray painting something derogatory, they're not going to hire you. They do Facebook checks, they do Instagram checks, they do all social media checks. If they're going to invest money in you and give you a position and teach you the trade of the job that they cater to, they're going to look into it. They're going to do a background check on you. McDonald's does background checks. So does a Walmart. Everywhere does.
I was thinking, and see if I can get back to my my next question. But yes. So you had mentioned that nowadays it's, I guess, kind of customary, more customary than it was in the past, for proms and graduations, definitely proms, to have buses take the students to the prom.
Yep.
Certainly, that is a relief for the parent.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's probably the best way. Excuse me. The limo companies around probably aren't happy about that because they can only rent out one thing or a couple of buses.
But even a limo to a prom is taking the driving away from the student.
Yeah, that is too. I think it's the safest option. I know schools around here do it. They will meet at a place, either the parking lot of the school, the high school, go to the prom venue, and then afterwards the prom ends. All at the same time, everybody gets on the bus and goes home. Goes back to the parking lot. That's where we have to either make sure the parents are like, hey, listen, where are you going? Who are you going to be with? This is the time I expect you home. And hopefully the kids abide to it.
And Quincy did, and they might still have the after prom parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used to call it senior night out. I don't know what they call it now, but that's till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or something. I went to mine at senior prom. It was up at Battery Marsh Park. And it was cool. It had a bunch of different activities the PTO put up for the kids. So,
and we should mention that this program does play in other communities. So It's a good thing to check out maybe what your community offers.
Yeah, generally I would say reach out to a member of the PTO for the school. Or even the principals should know about it. The principal's office, the secretaries in the principal's office know everything anyway. So just call one of them too.
Resourceful.
They know everything about everybody. They're very good at their jobs and they're good at guiding the kids. And if there is a program like that in your community, then take advantage of it if you want to. If not, just tell your son or daughter, hey, listen, just be home at this time and I expect you to be responsible.
So I guess what this leads me to now is communication, still communication, but the communication from the student, the high schooler, to the parent if something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. They should not be frightened to contact their parents.
Oh, yeah, correct. I mean, I understand anybody who has a kid gets the parent relationship with a child. Like, it's always evolving and dynamic. Let's just call it that.
True.
But I think parents should foster an environment where their kids should feel safe coming to them with the mistakes that they've made or the situations that they feel uncomfortable about without judgment. I know we mentioned that before in this episode, but truly I think if you have an environment in your home where it's like, hey, listen, you can come to me if something happens. Like, I would rather respect and appreciate honesty than lying or hiding something. Because, like I said before, we have a wealth of knowledge. We've lived lives that our kids may never know about, things that we did when we were growing up, stuff like that. So, like, we have resources just by virtue of being a little older of understanding things and say, hey, I can help you get out of this situation while we sit down and come up with a plan.
And in the event that another student recognizes maybe something like alcohol poisoning, call 911.
Right away. don't hesitate. Don't waste time. The big thing is with that is not only if you consume so much alcohol, but if you pass out. Positional asphyxiation is a thing. I've responded to sudden deaths where not younger people, but just older people were drinking too much or used drugs too much and passed out, and they aspirated and they weren't able to clear their airway and they were positionally asphyxiated. Recovery position is a big deal. If you're waiting for EMS to come, or fire department or police, just make sure that the person has an open airway, especially if they're passing out. That's a big thing. Maintaining the airway and with that sort of stuff is key.
I think young kids think they're invincible. I think that kind of comes with the age. Certainly,
That's a brain development.
It is. It is. So certainly, everything that hopefully they're watching this program as well, because there's a lot that a lot that kids and parents could gather from this kind of a program.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to touch upon? We haven't.
I think we pretty much touched on everything. It's pretty comprehensive.
Good job.
Good job to you too.
I mean, we certainly want these are happy events.
Yeah.
These are joyous events in someone's life. You want to enjoy them, and then the event itself, and enjoy what comes after the event. And that's basically what we're promoting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like we said at the beginning of the episode. You have to sit back and enjoy it, both parents and kids, because after you get out of high school, that's when the real world starts. You're in college. They don't cater to you like they did in high school. That's a lesson that I had trouble learning, but that's a lesson that everybody has to learn. If you go to a trade school or if you go in the military, that's definitely not like high school. A trade school, like, yeah, they're going to expect you to be at work at a certain time, be responsive to your supervisors, and prom and graduation, that's the last hurrah, and most kids will get jobs during the summer and work hard for those jobs, save up money for school or before they go in the service or something like that, or go into the workforce. Either way, enjoy those last 2 nights. Enjoy prom night, enjoy graduation night.
And kids are very impressionable, right? So they learn from what they see in front of them. So as a parent, you really want to set a good example.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all human. Everybody makes mistakes. But, you want to show your children, hey, listen, like we said before, you make a mistake, you can come to me. Have an open door policy. I mean, I do it with my daughter who's 8. Like, hey, listen, something's bugging you, you can come talk to me. You broke something, I'm not going to get angry as long as you're honest with me about it. I think if you start that as early as possible, I think it sets the foundation of having open conversation. So that's pretty much the best advice I can give as a parent of 8 years. But again,
Parent of 21 years, I think I certainly agree with what you said. And one of the, I guess we came to it quite a bit during this program, was communication. Obviously setting an example, but it's communicating. It's not to shut out your kids. It's not to, talk to your kids in such a manner that they'll shut you off.
Yep.
It's really knowing how to communicate, and everybody will be safe as a result.
Yeah, I talk a lot, so I have to constantly remind myself what communication means, and that's a 2-way conversation, not a 1-way conversation.
Well, I think listening, you have to listen to your kid, right? So if you say something and you're telling them to avoid drinking and avoid drugs, don't just rattle off a bunch of things. Let your kid interject.
Yep. I think it's important, again, listening and hearing are 2 different things. So I think if parents and kids both get that concept and they get the concept of a 2-way communication style, like we're doing here, I think everybody is for the better. And I think it's the parents got to kind of take the bull by the horns on it and show the kids, hey, listen, this is how we have a conversation that's open and honest and caring.
Very good. On that note, I think we've done this topic justice.
Think so too.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you at home for watching. And please remain safe during this prom and graduation season. And also remember to support the local access station in the community in which you reside.